Hi everyone, it's Paola. So I am back with another artist series video where I discuss an artist that I love and I create work inspired by them, and then I get to tell you about the artist and hopefully you can get inspired by them to create some work, whether it be from an artist or a graphic designer throughout history. Love art history. I already have a few episodes on this, so if you want to see those and you haven't, they'll be linked below. And also, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. And if you already are subscribed and you have not rang the bell, what are you doing? Ring the bell so you can know when I upload, because it's fun and you want to be part of this community that I have here. So it's great and a great time, and subscribe and do all the things. And now let's talk about Jenny Holzer. So we're talking about Jenny Holzer, and she is a feminist artist that started becoming very big in the 1980s during the feminist movement of art. I'm sure I've discussed it before in the artist series, and she has done so many works with typography. So if you don't know what typography is, it is basically the work with letter forms, with type, with words, all of that, and it's basically a thing that has to do with graphic design. So it's definitely in the graphic design realm, but she's not considered a graphic designer. She also has done paintings, photography, she's done words in sculpture, but all of it is very word type based. And so she is just the coolest, and she's very brave with all the work that she's done, so let's discuss that. So Jenny Holzer was working at the same time that Barbara Kruger was working and a lot of other feminist artists. I did a video on Barbara Kruger, that'll be linked below, and she had a lot of work that was inspired by graphic design, just like Barbara Kruger. I feel like at this time feminists were really taking back craft art, which sort of brings in the element of graphic design, because at that time and before that, graphic design was done a lot by hand. It wasn't such a digital practice, and so she was doing a lot of by hand works, but then she eventually went into bigger scale and more technological based works, which we'll get to in a second. So that is where her inspiration, I think, came from, in that feminist work, and that's why she is considered part of that. So besides the typography based work, her type work was also very poetic in its nature. So it wasn't just type to be type. I know when I work as a graphic designer and I do a lot of typography based things, the words don't always have meaning, and with hers they're definitely very purposeful. She was definitely critiquing the culture around her, which, like I've said before in my last videos, that was a big thing of feminist art. They were critiquing what was around them. She was always commenting on things that were going on in the world, and she was making a lot of statements about her opinion. So it was very personal work, and you could definitely see that, and it definitely comes across. Inflammatory Essays was a great work that had a lot of culture infused into the work, and it's a very poetic piece that's also very type-based. Lots of posters, it's very graphic design oriented. So I really like that piece. It's very colorful, it's very cool, but it also has a really deep meaning. So the bulk of Jenny Holzer's work is from like the 70s to the 90s. In the 90s, she took a different approach to her work, which we'll talk about in a second. I keep teasing things, but sorry. All of this work, even up until now, involved truisms, what she called truisms. So truisms are basically these statements, these lines of text, and they have a lot of meaning, but I think that the meaning is sort of assigned when you personally read it, which I think is very interesting. That, I mean, a lot of artists, you have to deal with that as an artist. When you create work, once it's out there, people can assign their own meaning to it. People will get out of it what they feel and what is their perspective of the world. So it's really interesting, and when you read Jenny Holzer's truisms, you definitely assign meaning based on your experiences in life, and it can be really powerful reading through those. So she does a lot of work where her truisms are just listed out in alphabetical order, and then she also does a lot of work that is singular and is specifically called something, like protect me from what I want. but that is also one of her truisms, and I think that that can be really powerful, especially when it's on like a big scale. She eventually, into the 90s, now we're getting to the part I know you're all waiting for, where she started doing a lot of LED work. So it was not just posters and straightforward graphic design, but it went into a really cool modern technological space with these LED signs. She did street signs, she did projections on the sides of buildings, so it was a lot of really big scale, sort of this found art idea of truth in her eyes, and this was really, really powerful. And when you do work like this, it can kind of be street art, but she did street art in a new way, which I think is exceptional. So the cool thing about Jenny Holzer is that her work is so personal, and you can really assign your own meaning to things, and it really brings a connection between the artist and the viewer. And therefore, because of that, it really seeped into the culture. So there were a lot of t-shirts, a lot of merch. People are always quoting the truisms on their own art. And even Lorde wore a truism on her dress to the Grammys one year. So it's a really cool thing when art can be so relatable. I feel like a lot of people kind of roll their eyes when things like this happen, when the art is so into the everyday viewer, and people say, oh, it's so basic, you know, everyone likes it, who cares, it's not important. But I think what's cool about her work is that it is so important, and it can be so important to a certain individual, and that's why I think it resonates with so many people. So a lot of her work is mixed media. She's done a lot of different types of work. She's done screen printing, she's done painted signs, she's done paintings, and she's also done even sculpture with the truisms written down on like marble stools, and then these LED signs and big projections. It's just incredible that she has done so many different types of work, and it's so impressive to see her work. And it's very cool that she is always talking about what's going on in the world. She has a lot of political work, she has a lot of work of just about what's going on around her in the world, and it always seems relevant when you look at it, which is very powerful, and I love it. So I saw her work when I was in London at the Tate Modern, and it was so exciting because it was a special exhibition. It'll only be there for a little while. If you're around that area, definitely go see it. It is incredible. It has all of her truisms written up and on the walls. There's so many LED signs. There's more truisms on plaques, and a lot of it has to do with feminism and being a woman, and a lot of it really resonated with me, and I'm just so inspired by her work as a graphic designer who's really interested in typography. So she is just the coolest, and I've always been inspired by her ever since I learned about her in art history. And yeah, instead of making something today, because I feel like I would just type something out and I feel like it would just kind of be like a copy of something that she did, I wanted to show you some works that I have designed that have just been inspired by her in a way, because I like to do a lot of type-based things, and I like these short statements that she does, and so I like to put weird things together to kind of create like this found poetry sort of vibe. So I'm just going to show you things I've designed in the past, and hopefully that can get you inspired to create something similar. So this is a student project that I did in my screen printing class. So this is a screen print. If you don't know what that is, I'd be happy to do a video on it. It would be interesting. But anyway, I made it very type-based, and then I did this melting heart that I drew on top. Well, I didn't draw it, I drew it first and then screen printed it. Whatever. And I did like a gradient of colors and then added some blue. And I really like type-based work. I know in screen printing you can do a lot, but I've really focused on typography because I think really I've just been so inspired by Jenny Holzer and what she does with typography that I like to add it to other mediums. So I like to add that graphic design element into screen printing, into fibers. So yeah, so this is another piece that I designed. I made this in my fabric printing and dyeing class, so it's a fibers class. I am absolutely in love with this kind of work. I love working with fibers. I would love to do it so much more. It's hard to like get all the resources, but I just haven't done it. But it really inspires me that I can do type on fabric, which I just think is so cool. It's such a fun combination of fashion in a way and graphic design, and I had a blast in that class, and I really liked to explore words and put them together and then print words onto fabric, which was a concept that my professor was baffled by. She was like, wow, I don't have a lot of people who do this. Like, usually people are doing patterns and stuff, and I'm like, I want to make a fabric poster. So yeah, I was definitely inspired by Jenny Holzer. It was the same semester that I was studying her. It was like the summer, and I was only taking art history, contemporary art history, and fibers. And so I definitely was doing the type thing and was loving feminist art, and yeah, Jenny Holzer definitely inspired this piece, and I'm pretty proud of it. Okay, so that is what I have for you today. Hopefully you love Jenny Holzer's work as much as I do, and you are inspired to create something. That can be digital, it can be physical. Get on it, because it can be a really fun, small project to do, just to create more on the daily. Create something inspired by an artist. So, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe, and leave me a comment about another artist that you think I should be discussing in a future artist series video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye! Well, I don't know what's going on, but I need a snack.